flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Stolen by Ehlers to Wheeler, back to Ehlers, scores!
Kyle Connor has the Midas touch right now.
And another outstanding stop by Connor Hellebuyck.
Check the shoot, score! Oh, what a slick move by Mark Scheifele.
Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets, hosted by Jets TV.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. Here on episode 105, joined by Jets TV's Mitchell Clinton and 680 CJOB's Paul Edmonds. Guys, the Winnipeg Jets, they find themselves on their same losing streak. Obviously, it's extended to 6 games. Mitchell, what have you seen from the Winnipeg Jets this past week that's led to this skid? And then also, how can they improve as they continue on?
Well, injuries certainly play a role, but I'm sure we'll be touching on that with like Adam Lowry being out of the lineup and Nikolaj Ehlers as well. But you can see why teams talk about the need to stay even keel, because just from a standpoint of covering the games, let alone actually being the athletes involved, there was definitely a bit of a roller coaster ride to the week. I think the first theme that really emerged was from Paul Stastny's comments after that first loss to Edmonton, just about how Hellebuyck had bailed the team out when they made mistakes, more specifically mistakes that really could have been avoided in just how the Jets were playing. So the emphasis became just being better defensively and making better decisions with the puck. It looked much better in the second loss to Edmonton. Paul Maurice said the team had eliminated kind of the danger on a number of the rushes that Edmonton had by the tops of the circles in the defensive zone. So that's really well done. The challenge is, now a couple of other things popped up. So in that loss to the Oilers, there was a couple of power play goals against. And then prior to the loss against Montreal, the Jets had 6 goals in 5 games. So the offense isn't something that's coming very easily right now. That's somewhat expected as we get closer to the postseason. But you take a perennial 20-goal guy out of your lineup and Nick Ehlers, that's going to be an adjustment. And I mentioned the 2 goals against on the penalty kill. Well, that's happened 3 times in the last 6 games. That's only happened twice in the entire regular season up until this current skid. So I think getting Adam Lowry back will help reset the forward lines a bit, but it will also be a huge help on the penalty kills. So I think better times are coming. Those are just the areas that I think if you're the Jets that you're looking to tighten up a little bit.
Throughout this streak, Paul, I think a lot of the media topics of conversation are just, what can you learn from this? How can you turn this negative into a positive? So with that in mind, where do you see this going in terms of perhaps being a good thing as we head into the playoffs? I mean, nobody wants to be on this losing streak, but at the same time, there could be some benefits from it. And what do you think those benefits might be?
Well, we all know that at some point, the Jets are going to come out of it, right? It's not going to last forever. So that's number one. We have to keep that in mind. Number 2, it's about how you play. And when you talk to the players over the last 2 games, they were pretty happy with their last 2 games, despite they were losses. And I know that they had 2-goal leads twice in the Montreal game and could not hold that. But overall, to the naked eye, it might have looked like they were making some mistakes and things weren't going their way. And they were kind of reverting to the way they played for most of the homestand. But the players felt that there was a lot of good things that came out of that game, and Mitchell gave a real good, precise answer on what's going on, and certainly the fact that over the last 6 games, they've given up 2 power play goals in 3 of those. Well, in saying that, I mean, look at those goals. I mean, kind of off a couple of shin pads, and one is a fan shot that goes right to their guy that he ends up Yoel Armia squeezing one through Connor Hellebuyck. And I mean, there just hasn't been some puck luck in certain aspects. And the penalty kill has really been very good for the Winnipeg Jets, and the power plays dried up. So those are kind of a couple of things that Paul Maurice touched on today during his media Zoom availability, and that is you get 1 power play goal. And by the way, at the skate on Monday, they're probably going to work on their power play a little bit. They did that on Sunday as well, just to kind of reconfigure things. But you get a power play goal, and all of a sudden you're back right again, and you feel good about it. But what can they learn? I think a great quote came from Sunday from Paul Maurice, and he said he truly believed that there will be a great benefit from this losing skid. And I think what it is, it's taught the team a little bit of patience. And just because things haven't gone well for you, you need to stay the course. And that can be something that you can draw on as experience going into the postseason or right in the midst of a playoff series. okay, we didn't play very good. We've fallen behind in the series, or the series is tied up right now. We've kind of been down this road before. We've managed to kind of have the team concept, and we've had everybody kind of pulled together on the same rope, on the same side. So we're going to get through this as a team. Andrew Kopp talked about that today, that everybody's had a piece of the ownership of wins and now the losing skid. And that's a good thing, because it's not just little fragmented groups going off and talking to each other, trying to figure this out. It's the whole team trying to do that in groups of 8 and 10 guys and 12 guys. So I think there are some beneficial things out of this. Nobody likes losing 6 in a row. They're sinking a little bit in the standings. Montreal's right on their heels. It looks like the Jets are going to make the playoffs. I don't think that Calgary's going to catch them. Calgary only has 6 games remaining, and they're 10 points back. But those are the types of little things that you can learn from this. Better now than even another week from now that you're driving into this skid, because I do believe there are some enormous signs that the Jets are starting to come out of this. And I think getting Adam Lowry back will certainly help in getting the configuration and the continuity back on some of the lines where guys are very comfortable.
Mitchell, you kind of touched on this in your first answer, injuries being, one of the reasons that the Jets find themselves in the situation that they are in. Nikolaj Ehlers, obviously he's out for the rest of the regular season. Jets hope to have him back for the playoffs. We'll see how that pans out. But just what do the Jets miss with Nikolaj not in the lineup? I mean, it seems like an obvious question, but perhaps some of those things are a little bit more pronounced now that we're in the situation that we're in.
Short answer is a lot. Now, because I'm a Jets TV reporter, I will flush that out a little bit for you. Obviously, he's one of your 220 goal scorers this season, so clearly that's important. Second on the team in points, also important. But honestly, I think what you miss most is his speed and zone entry capability. How many times this season have we seen Nikolaj Ehlers get the puck on his stick in the defensive zone or in the neutral zone, and he just seems to have that innate ability to get into the offensive zone and make the right play. Like, I'm thinking of a couple of plays. There's the play against Ottawa last month where he sets up Mark Scheifele on the backdoor side. That's Ehlers getting into the zone, decides he doesn't see anything off the rush, turns up, gets on his backhand, and finds a lane, finds Mark Scheifele, bang, back of the net, Jets score a goal. Then against the Flames, instead of turning up, he does the thing where he drops it into his skates. I think he said after the game that he didn't really know why he did that. He just kind of did. It just felt right. That's that innate ability I'm talking about. So he puts it in his skate and then drives wide around the Flames defense, stops up behind the goal line, and finds Scheifele again in the circle. That's just 2 plays that I can think of off the top of my head at 5-on-5. Those skills translate to the power play as well. Paul Edmonds kind of mentioning the power plays dried up a little bit. He's a big part of that second power play unit's ability to not only gain the zone, but to fire as many pucks to the net as they do. He's tied for second on the team in power play goals with 6. He hasn't played the last 3 games and is still only 2 shots behind Kyle Connor for the team lead in shots on goal. In short, he's a game breaker. He's the type of player that can score a big goal when there seems to be nothing going right, or he's capable of making a momentum-changing play. You just hope that he's healthy and ready to go for the start of the postseason, and sure, all indications are that he will be, but definitely, in the time that he's out, Jets really miss him up front.
As Jets fans shake their magic 8 ball, and it says all signs point to yes as to Adam Lowry getting into the lineup on Monday in Ottawa, let's talk about Mason Appleton. He was obviously thrust into a top 6 role with Ehlers' absence, and then Lowry as well. Paul, what have you seen, or what did you see from Mason Appleton in that top 6 role?
Well, we're going to see a guy that I think is destined for a top 6 role at some point in his Winnipeg Jets career, just the way he has been trending. Number one, he has had to fight and battle at every level of hockey he's ever been at. And that includes the National Hockey League. But here he is, and here he was playing with Mark Scheifele on that top line for a number of games. He also, over his career, whether it goes back to youth hockey in Wisconsin or through college or the Moose at the AHL level, or now, of course, at the NHL level, which he'd like to be a little bit more prolific at, he has scored at every level. He has 9 goals this year. That's a career high. It is 15 games without a goal for him, but I look at this. There was a couple of games playing with Mark Scheifele that he got numerous chances and he got shots on net. In fact, in one of the Edmonton games, he had 7 shots on goal, which is a career high for him in any one game in the National Hockey League. So you don't get that by just kind of loafing your way into a spot or just getting a little bit fortuitous that you were in the right spot and the puck found you. He has played, despite the fact the scoring's dried up for him of late, he has played the same way that got him to those 9 goals at the starting point and midway through the season. So I really like Mason Appleton's game. It hasn't changed a lot. It is direct. It's hard to areas where the puck is going to be. He hunts the puck very well. He's a bigger body. He doesn't mind the physicality. He'll throw a check. He'll take a check to make a play. And that's what you want up on that wall. And he's got the speed, I think, to complement a lot of the other forwards up front for the Jets. So while he will be moved back to the third line, if you want to characterize it as that, with Lowry and Kopp going into the game on Monday against Ottawa, I do believe that we have seen a snippet of the future for the Winnipeg Jets. And in specific, it will be for Mason Appleton to play on the right wing on one of the top 2 lines at some point in the not too distant future, because I think that he does have the ability to get there and stay there once he gets comfortable and starts to find the back of the net. And that will come with some confidence. Then the confidence will grow from that. But I do believe that the Jets are on to something here for a guy that wasn't a high draft pick in a round for them. He seems to have really found his stride over the course of this year. And despite the fact that he didn't score a lot, guys, in playing with Mark Scheifele, if at all, I did believe that he didn't look out of place when you watched him in the way he played, for sure. And the, I guess, most important part of it is he's earned the trust of Paul Maurice and the coaching staff. And that is always beneficial to a player that's going to look for more ice time and more opportunity. And I think the sky is the limit, certainly, for Mason Appleton as a Winnipeg Jet in the next couple of years.
Our guest this week on Ground Control episode 105 is Brigette Lacquette, and she's a Canadian women's national hockey team member. Mitchell, you did the interviewer, so I'll let you tee her up.
Yeah, this was a fun conversation to have. We chatted prior to the reports that kind of came out over the weekend about the Women's World Hockey Championship being potentially rescheduled for what looks like August. So that's good news. But she gave her thoughts on the hope of that event being rescheduled. But she also has her hand in a number of initiatives. In 2018, she was the first Indigenous player to play for Canada's women's hockey team at the Olympics. She earned a silver medal there. She has another 2 silvers at the Worlds. And on top of being a great player, she's also on the NHL's Female Advisory Committee and has an active role in WASAC Nights and being a role model for Indigenous youth. So I was excited to talk to her, and here's that conversation.
Shop where the players shop. Jets Gear and TrueNorthShop.com are your authentic team stores. Make sure to stock up on all your favorite Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose merchandise today. Visit one of the 5 Jets Gear locations or shop online at TrueNorthShop.com.
Hi, this is Adam Lowry, and you're listening to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
Pleased to be joined by Brigette Lacquette, who wears a number of hats in the game of hockey, really. I mean, we're going to get to a lot of those, but as much as I don't want to start on a tough note for you, first off, I mean, you've played for Canada at the Worlds a few times. Obviously, not a fun note to start the interview on, but how difficult was the news about the cancellation of the Worlds in Halifax? And are you hopeful that the event will be rescheduled for another time, hopefully in the summer?
Yeah, it was definitely a shock to kind of get that news the last day of camp, and obviously it's devastating and very disappointing to get that after the cancellation of last year's Worlds as well. So definitely looking, it's hopeful, hoping that we can get back on the ice sooner rather than later.
You won gold with Canada at the U18s. You've earned silver medals at the Olympics, the Worlds, as well as a bronze at the Worlds. So no doubt, obviously, itching to get back. How much conversation was there kind of amongst your teammates after the announcement? I saw you retweeted a teammate of yours in Blair Turnbull who outlined kind of the rules and the protocol that you were all expected to follow as a team leading up. So were you all kind of a bit of a venting / support group for each other at that time?
Yeah, I guess everyone was, obviously really down. We did spend some time together after the announcement and everything, and it just kind of, it was just very tough to kind of go through that. But again, you can only hope for the best and hoping that we can get back on the ice.
Moving to happier topics, we'll say, on this one. Mentioned off the top, you wear a number of hats. One of those is with the NHL's Female Advisory Committee. And I was reading up on it, and they've got 3 goals, essentially. And it's to build and identify role models to become ambassadors of the sport, attract and retain girls and women to the sport, increasing programming such as Learn to Play and First Shift, and to market the game to girls and women as a distinct audience. So you were named to that committee in March. Kind of how exciting of an opportunity is that for you?
Yeah, it's very cool. I remember getting the email, and I took a screenshot and sent it to my parents, and they thought this was super awesome. So, it's honestly, it's truly an honor to be able to be put in this position and to get on the committee and be able to be part of those conversations and decisions. So, it's very exciting.
Have you met? Kind of, how does it all kind of work? I guess would be the question.
Yeah, well, I guess we had one committee meeting that was about 2 hours long. I think it was at the end of March, maybe. So I think we have another one coming up soon. But pretty much you meet every month, I'm thinking. So yeah, kind of just going through, different topics and voting on this and that. So
a lot of, and it sounds like just basically on the objectives that I read there, a lot of it is, obviously targeting, women as a distinct audience. And there's a lot of obviously push towards, the women's game, as there should be. And I remember chatting with Sportsnet's Harner Ryan Singh, he's about a month ago. One of the messages from him that stood out to me in that conversation was representation is everything. So what does it mean to you to not only be a woman in the sport, but someone of obviously with Indigenous culture, playing at the highest level of hockey in the world, and kind of be that role model?
Yeah, well, obviously it's truly an honor to be able to be put in this position. Growing up, I didn't have that person that was like me in my sport. So it was very tough to relate in that way. And, obviously going through the racism and everything like that. And, coming from, I grew up in a small Métis community about 4 hours north of Winnipeg, Mallard, Manitoba, and it was very small. So, it's just, people don't understand that how small it is. But, when I go to the fly-in reserves or I go up north, and it's like, I can relate to you guys because, I also lived in an isolated community. So, it's honestly, it's so much fun to be able to connect with the youth. I love it. I've been doing it for the last few years already. And, to be able to go in and, tell my story and, they can relate to, I have eczema too, or it's, I got bullied too, or, this is what this person called me, when they're like battling racism, and, kind of just showing them that, they can go through those hard times, but they can also come out of those hard times. And that, anything is possible if you set your mind to it. And, that's kind of what my main goal is to share with them.
The video that the National Hockey League put out announcing you as part of the committee titled you as an Indigenous advocate. What do you want people to know about hockey and what it means to Indigenous people?
It gets us moving for sure. I've been to so many, different, reserves across Canada and settlements. And, sports is kind of something that for myself was my out. I didn't have a lot going on in Mallard, Manitoba. There was, you could either get into, the bad stuff right away. And, there's obviously, the teenage pregnancy happens, it's just, you kind of veer off from, setting goals for yourself and, knowing that there's more out there in the world to achieve. So with sport, it was, I loved it at such a young age where it was like, I just wanted to keep playing and, playing on this team and that team and going to the city and playing. And even when I did, face racism, that didn't stop me because I kind of knew that I've always kind of loved playing this game, and that's what kept me going. And that's also what, got me out of Mallard and, to see the world and, make so many friends across the world. And, that's, it also helped me, develop the discipline in order to play, on a team, the importance of teamwork and being disciplined and, and working hard, I guess, and that kind of gets you, places if you set your mind to it, and, you can achieve anything that you set your mind to. So, I guess I do share my stories where, it was hard for me, and there's so many times where I wanted to quit in my journey, but, it's definitely worth it in the end.
It's interesting that you bring up things like how important like hockey or even just sport was to you, especially growing up, and the opportunities to play those sports and what it meant. Because the Jets obviously had the annual WASAC night over the weekend. It's something you've been a part of, but one of the messages that I really took from it is from Kevin Chief, who was just saying like one of the things that WASAC really does is they use sports and rec to kind of help kids be able to have those opportunities. So like I said, you were part of some of the previous WASAC nights. You were on the ice at Camp Manitou with 40 Indigenous youth last year at the second annual one. And then part of Manitoba Moose Follow Your Dreams Day. You did a meet and greet with a number of youth from Indigenous communities. You were all over this thing. So what are events kind of like that for you?
Yeah, it's honestly the Wahsaq Night was so much fun to be able to go there and drop the puck at the Moose game and then go to the Jets game and watching the young singers singing the anthem in Cree and in Ojibwe, and it's super awesome to see, just because I guess I didn't see that as when I was a child, when I was a kid growing up, like that wasn't I guess that I didn't see it happening and it wasn't visual. So to see that now and have the opportunity for these kids to be able to meet, other Indigenous players and, hockey players and, role models, I guess is very, it's very important for them. It's very important for them to see that, you can, play sports and you can make it someplace. Yeah.
Did you see the jerseys this year? The red ones, were you able to see them? How nice were those things?
Yeah, they're beautiful.
So nice. They're going to be up for auction. The ones last year were up for auction. A lot of the proceeds go toward WASAC. But the one thing that I do want to get your comment on just prior to wrapping things up here, Brigette, and thank you for all the time that you've given here. How important? So obviously WASAC Night is important as we've kind of mentioned, but it's like you mentioned the anthem being sang in Ojibwe and Cree, and the Indigenous culture is now celebrated on national television as it was on Hockey Night in Canada over the weekend. I asked this question fully realizing there's still a long way to go in this regard, but I guess you just talked about how, you didn't see these types of things. It wasn't visual. Do you see this as perhaps just maybe one step kind of in the right direction of where things have to go? And again, like I said, realizing that there's still a long way to go. Yeah,
I mean, we definitely have come a long way from, in the last, I guess, 20 years, but we still have, quite a ways to go. It is nice to see, get the land acknowledgements and, seeing the Indigenous nights like this. It's very cool. And especially for the kids to kind of experience that and being able to say, like, oh, I sung the anthem at a Jets game. Like that's super cool to say and to be able to tell the stories to their friends. So for them to experience that is completely awesome. So, yeah, I mean, we still have quite a ways to go.
Appreciate your time, like I said, Brigette, and hopefully, fingers crossed for all the girls involved in the women's team to be able to play in that World's Championship that I know you guys more than deserve to play in this year. So, thanks again, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
He was moving and shooting. He scored!
Tune in to Jets TV Live after every home game for highlights, analysis, and all the post-game comments live. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the Winnipeg Jets mobile app.
Thank you so much to Brigette for taking the time to chat with Mitchell for that interview. Before we continue on with this podcast, Paul, you have the healthcare heroes for this past week.
Well, I always enjoy doing this, and as part of the Winnipeg Jets Healthcare Heroes Initiative, the team today honors the Southern Health, Public Health, and Healthy Living team who have maintained close working relationships with community organizations to meet individual and community health needs. Read more about their work at winnipegjets.com.
You can find all of that information there, like Paulie said. Mitchell, the week ahead, we have Monday in Ottawa, Wednesday in Calgary, going to fly right over Winnipeg on Tuesday, and then again Saturday on May 8th against Ottawa at Bell MTS Place. So what are you expecting from the Winnipeg Jets this week? And you better say 3 wins.
I would love for that. I look at it as as opportunities to take steps in the right direction. So yes, the Jets, of course, are going to be looking to win these games against Ottawa, Calgary, and then Ottawa again, like you mentioned. it's interesting because if the Jets are able to do that, then I think it obviously gives the room a lot of confidence as well. Paul Maurice mentioned after the loss to Montreal, it seems the team is playing in a way that they're afraid to make a mistake or be the one who makes the mistake. And of course, for a team that's got so much skill, if you're gripping your stick a little bit, like the plays that you could normally make, you're just not going to be able to make. And so obviously that's not when the Jets are going to be playing their best. But when you've been losing games in the way that you haven't all season, it's hard to blame them for holding their sticks a little bit tight. So I just think, if they can find a way to get a victory to start this week off, that good feeling returns to the room. Paul Maurice said some great things about how the room is together. Like Paulie said, you're not seeing, these 3 kind of mini meetings going on in different corners of the rink and whatnot. He says everybody's in this together. So that's obviously the primary thing that you want with this. And if you can start the week with a win, good feeling returns to the room. All of a sudden, those offensive plays that weren't clicking for the past couple of weeks become a bit easier. So it could very well have a snowball effect. But like Paul said on Sunday, you just got to win one. And then obviously things will probably start turning in their direction.
Before we wrap things up, Paul, I'll just get your thoughts on Christian Vesalainen's game. He obviously was inserted into the lineup when the Ehlers and Lowry injuries happened. Just what are your thoughts on, how he's looked? And obviously he played a bit bigger of a role as he was alongside with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Matthew Perreault. Had his chances, obviously couldn't get that first NHL goal, but seemed like he was really clicking out there.
Boy, I really like that line, I mean, that I called it the crash and bash line because they were hard on pucks and they were kind of buzzing around and beetling around and water bugging around in the opposition zone. And they were physical, but not to the point where they were taking dumb penalties, right? They weren't overzealous in any regard, and just seemed that there was a little bit of chemistry there. I think, guys, even though that, we work for the team and we have been reporters in different sort of aspects of our careers, we're always kind of cheering for the good story, right? And I want to see guys like Mason Appleton and Jansen Harkins and now Christian Vesalainen succeed, because we understand how much work goes in for these guys and how many sacrifices have been made to get to this point. And it's not only them, but their families as well. And there's a financial commitment. And then, of course, there's a cultural sort of aspect from a guy like Christian Vesalainen coming over. And remember, at the start of last year, he and Sami Niku ended up in that car accident that kind of derailed things at the start of the year at camp. And there was some things that were sort of starting to be talked about. Well, he was a number 1 pick. Is he ever going to pan out? So the long and short of it is here, I've really enjoyed the way he's played. And not only that, but when you talk to people around the team from the upper echelon of the levels, from Paul Maurice or to, Craig Heisinger and Kevin Cheveldayoff and Larry Simmons, they talk about how his attitude has been really good this year and that he's warranted this elevation to the team and to be inserted at the start of the year like he was, and then finding his way into the lineup again. And that's really important, I think. And then the other part of it is he started to have value on the ice for the Jets. And Paul Maurice said that he really likes the way he's got a bigger frame on him. He's a bigger boy, and he can kind of get out there and he can be physical and he can skate really well and he can play either side, left wing, right wing. So he's versatile that way. The only thing that they want to see now grow in his game is for him to win those puck battles, which he has been, and then come off the wall and make a play after you've made that puck battle victory and make a play with the puck. So arcing off the wall, coming off, and whether that's darting to the net or to the open ice or distributing the puck, they want to see a little bit more. They want that layer of Christian Vesalainen's game that he has, of course, at every other level of hockey, start to be a factor and more noticeable at the NHL level. So I really like the way he's played. I think that he has served notice that he is going to be challenging for a full-time spot on the team next year for sure, because there is going to be some volatility with Seattle coming in and some contract statuses that will change. As always, you never have the same team from one year to the next. But overall, I think that kind of like Mason Appleton, there's a lot of brightness about the future with Christian Vesalainen and the Winnipeg Jets organization. I think the statement we can make is that he's kind of finally arrived here as a number 1 draft pick of the Winnipeg Jets.
All right, well, that just about wraps it up for Ground Control. Thank you so much for listening. On behalf of myself, Tyler Esquivel, Mitchell Clinton, Paul Edmonds, and Brigette Lacquette, Thank you so much for listening. Have a great one.
This is Big Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets, hosted by Jets TV. For Jets news, videos, and more, head to winnipegjets.com.